So on today's video, I'm going to show you how to take the camera head, spring, and curly cord off of a Vivax-Metrotech vCAM-6 CP reel. I'm also going to show you how to put it back on. Remember, you can find all the different steps in the timestamps down below in the description to help you navigate and find the particular part of the video you want to watch. So you're probably wondering when and why you need to take your camera head off. Just a reminder, we can test the camera head and bypass the reel by plugging in the camera head directly to a monitor, a vCAM-6 monitor. There's a camera test port there. So if you're not getting any video, maybe no lights, you can take the camera head off, plug it into the monitor directly to see if there's anything wrong with the camera head. So that would be one reason why to take the camera head off. Another reason, you can replace the spring yourself. You just order a spring. Let's say the spring is bent, out of shape. You can always get a new spring and from a Vivax-Metrotech store, and you can install it yourself. Also the curly cable, same thing. If there's any damage to the curly cable that sits inside the spring or the lanyards, you can do these installations yourself. You just gotta order the parts. So there's a few things that you're gonna need to do this camera head removal and installation, and the tools come inside this bag, this accessory bag here. The main thing that we want is the camera head removal tool. It's basically a spanner wrench. This is very important. Each vCAM-6 that you purchase comes with one of these. Secondly, you're going to grab a flathead screwdriver. These, you can just pull any flathead screwdriver from your toolbox, preferably a smaller one, and I'll show you what you're gonna use this for here in a second. The other thing that's handy is silicone, so we can apply this to the O-rings. And in order to apply the silicone properly, some Q-tips help as well. So hopefully there's a skid on the camera head. So the first thing that I want to do if I'm going to remove the camera head is remove the skid itself. So in this case, on this design of skid, this black plastic part here, there's 3 set screws. So I'm going to take the flathead screwdriver, unscrew. You don't want to pull the set screws out all the way. Still want to leave them in the skid. You just want to loosen them a bit so the set screws aren't gripping into the camera head like they're supposed to. So now we can slide the camera head off. The next step, we have our camera head removal tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the camera head, and I use my left hand. I grab the camera head in my left hand, and then I'm going to take the spanner wrench and put it behind the end of the spring here. Okay, see that end point? And that little tooth on the camera head removal tool sits right behind it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold tight onto the camera head, and I'm going to twist the spring off. It's the threaded part. So now here's the threaded part on the back end of the camera head. Okay, now to remove the camera head itself, you can see here there's the black curly cable and then the 2 lanyards, okay, that plug into the back here. There's a little nut here, okay? And so what you want to do is you want to unscrew that nut. You can just usually do it with your hands, and you want to loosen that end, okay? So now you just pull out once you loosen that nut, and the camera head is now free. So now that we've taken the camera head off, I wanted to just kind of show you, I mentioned earlier, you can test the camera head on the vCAM-6 monitor by bypassing the reel, but first you got to take the camera head off, right? So I just have an older camera head here that's a little bit worn. Actually, a customer sent this in because, I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of a crack in the lens and in the glass and where the lens is. But this is just kind of something maybe the customer wants to test, the end user wants to test. All you got to do is turn your machine on, make sure it's not plugged into the reel, and the second port down, you're going to see a connector that matches the 4 pins on the camera head. And what we're going to do is we're going to put that in. Okay, and you can see the lights come on here, and then we have a picture on the screen. So, you know, the picture's not bad. The lights are on, so I know this camera head is good. However, there is a cracked window in front of the lens, so that's probably why this was sent in. Brand new head, same thing. So I want to make sure it's working. We can plug it in to the side here. Okay, and we can see there's picture on the screen, and we have working lights over here. So we've taken the camera head off. Okay, so that's, you know, step one. If that's the only thing you need to take out or take off, then you can, you know, always put the camera head back on, and I'll show you how to do that here later on in the video. But if in the event that you have to change out the spring, the lanyards, or the curly cord, this is how you do it. So just like removing the camera head, you're gonna need the camera head removal tool, and you're gonna take the very end of the spring there. Okay, you can see it, yeah, and there's a little tooth here on the spinner wrench or the camera head removal tool, and I'm going to take my one hand and grab the base of this cone here, this white cone, and I'm going to take my camera head removal tool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to twist off the spring. All right, so now that I've got the spring off, okay, so separate piece here, which leaves us with the 2 lanyards, okay, and the curly cable, all right? So, like I said, this is all stuff that you can do if you have to replace your parts, is just order these parts. Sometimes the lanyards get frayed from too much tension or overuse. You know, they're relatively inexpensive if you buy them through a Vivax-Metrotech authorized dealer or repair center. You can replace them yourself. Also, the curly cable gets worn out every so often, so it needs to be replaced. You can do it yourself. So to remove this part, now that we have the spring off, a matching nut on the back end. It should just come off. If it's tight and you can't remove it with your hand, one thing I do recommend is grabbing a set of channel locks and applying just a little bit of pressure, just so you can get that first rotation off the nut, and then you just pull out. So there you go. Remove the curly from the termination end. So now we're gonna reassemble everything and put the curly and the lanyards back onto the termination end. So the first thing we're gonna do is when you're putting back the camera head or one of these curlies, it only fits one way. So you can see on this 4-pin connector that there's a little key on top. And so you're gonna have to match that key with the connector point. You can see over here, there's a key right there on that connector. It's like a half circle on top of the connector above or next to the 4 pins. So you have to make sure that that fits correctly. It's only gonna go one way. It's like a puzzle piece in a puzzle, okay? So, like a jigsaw puzzle. So just gotta make sure it goes in there, and then you just push that in, okay? Now that I have that in, I'm going to, the other thing that I want to mention is we're going to put the curly, so there's a long part of the curly cord and a short end. We want that curly towards this way, okay? We don't want this curly part towards the camera head. So the shorter end back towards the push rod, okay? You can see that this is longer and this is shorter. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to put the lanyards back in. So the lanyards, we're going to tuck underneath the nut here, and you can see that there's a hole, a circle that each one of these lanyards fit into. And you can see when I yank on them, they're in there solid. So now that I have that in, and make sure you put the lanyards inside the nut. Now I slide the nut back, and then we screw back on. And for this part, I do recommend that we tighten with channel locks and apply pressure with the channel locks. Tighten it a little bit. You don't want to over tighten it. So if I'm going to put the camera head back on eventually here in a couple steps, one thing that I want to do, and I didn't mention it earlier in the video, but there's these 2 O-rings, okay, that sit here, and there's actually 2 O-rings on this side too, and I didn't apply any to that. Kind of forgot, but one thing you can do is to take your silicone grease or O-ring grease, apply it to a Q-tip. What you want to do is coat all the way around the O-rings. Like I said, this is the, where the camera head goes. You can also do it with the back end too. Okay, I highly recommend it. So I want to slide the lanyards back through the nut on the front end. Now it's time to put the springs back on. So what I want to do, you see how there's a little open section on the spring? The camera head goes on this side. Okay, so where the shorter end of the compressed spring, okay, that's where the camera head goes, up here. This is the back end. So the longer part of the compressed spring goes towards the push rod. Once you have everything slid through the nut, like your lanyards, we are going to slide this spring back on, and we are going to use our hands. You guys see that flat spot right there? Okay. What we want you to do is take the very end of that spring. There's actually 2 flat parts. There's one on this side and then one right here. And you're going to take the end of the spring and you're going to go no further past that flat spot. Okay. If you go past it, what happens is the spring is really hard to take off. So you kind of want to just make sure you twist it on all the way, but make sure the end of the spring does not go past that flat part. It's pretty important. So you can see here inside the spring, we have the lanyards, the curly, and that nut. You want to make sure that nut is all the way as far as you can go to the front end connector that's hidden right now behind this compressed spring. We can see the lanyards are tucked inside the nut and they're sticking out here. That's good. And you also want to make sure that your lanyards are straight and not crossed inside the spring. That is pretty darn important as well. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to pull out the end connector and we want to put the lanyards back in. You can see they fit like that. Okay. Now that the lanyards are tucked inside the end connector where they need to be, curly cord's installed and the nut is all the way up front towards the connector. I'm going to take the camera head end. You can see, remember on the push rod side, there's the 4-pin connector. It only goes one way. Okay, you can see there's a key right there. So you got to make sure that that little notch inside that connector fits in the notch on this female end. Okay, so once I have inserted that, I want to tighten. Like the back end, I take channel locks and I tighten. Do not apply too much, just a little bit of pressure. Make sure that it's on there good. We can see that the lanyards are nice and straight in there. They're not crisscrossed. So the next part we're going to do is put the spring back onto this threaded part. So one thing that we have to do is we have to reverse. So we want to twist the camera head the opposite direction 6 times. And at this point, 6 or 8 times, and you're going to see the lanyards twist inside the spring as I do this, and that's okay because basically what we're doing is threading. Sorry, I was losing grip there, but took the gloves off. Once again, it's a new camera head. This is a new unit, so the metal is less forgiving. And remember, I was saying about the flat spot, you want to twist no further past the flat spot on the end of the spring. So you can end it right about there. Okay? And that's how you have it. Slide the skid on. We're good to go. For more content like this, hit like, subscribe, and comment down below.